Everything woke must burn, and thankfully it will. Just like space steel and space rock, and the roaring campfire in the vacuum of space from the Acolyte did.
The entertainment industry has changed a lot the last couple of years. It does feel like a lot of the beloved franchises, the original works, continue
One!
to get revisited in new and unique ways. And unfortunately, these new and unique ways
I stroll in under 10 seconds. Beautiful.
is just injecting a lot of modern politics, modern feelings, and such. And it just ends up being a cringy mess because it doesn't feel like these works are necessarily honoring the original vision.
Oh, that was. I forgot what's the name. Wheel of Time. God, it was so awful. I watched 2 episodes and a half and I just spaced out and forgot I was even trying to watch it.
But I feel like that's kind of the issue when you have so much content being produced for like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. This is just bound to happen. And I do feel like when you look back to the Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy from Peter Jackson, that was the gold standard. And now we just continue to see horrible adaptations. Obviously, we'll talk about Rings of the Power, but there was also that Gollum video game, which was just, it was awful.
I feel this is unfair. The original Lord of the Rings was sublime, amazing, and it still holds up to this day as absolutely unquestionably amazing. True, in almost everything. There are very few moments where you're like, this doesn't make sense, this is stupid. No, everything pretty much holds up very, very well, even under extremely tight scrutiny. And it's unfair to compare that to the modern days because in the modern days they're not even trying to make a good show. They're just pushing propaganda, and that's it.
And then even Star Wars has had its hits or misses over the years under George Lucas. But the nicest thing I can say is that the prequels, they had their own vision to it. It wasn't exactly all that great, but Revenge of the Sith I still think is a fantastic film. But to this day, throughout all of the entertainment industry, we constantly have stuff like this. This is an article, PC Games and Saints Row's new tone aims to deal with the struggles of modern life. Volition says its tone needed to change for modern audiences. Volition doesn't exist.
How did they all do this? Oh, we need to appeal to what modern audiences? If you're appealing to this massive modern audience, then why does everything fail because no one wants to play? Maybe it's because the modern audience doesn't actually exist. Just a thought.
Today because this Saints Row remake ended up being a travesty, an absolute disaster that dishonored the past. It was just laughable in so many different regards and a complete misunderstanding of what Saints Row is as a game. And the thing that people need to understand, these companies, they are not the same as what they once were. Volition of 2022 or whenever before they were shut down is not the same Volition as the ones in the early 2000s that made this beloved franchise. And that's what we are seeing in Hollywood constantly. Lord of the Rings, it's just, I don't even need to get started, but I thought this one was absolutely hilarious when it was announced. Magic the Gathering had their own card set and everything for it. And this is what they said. Our goal is a modern take on the world of J.R.R. Tolkien. Lovingly crafted.
Yeah, everyone's now black. Even, by the way, before this, Magic pretty much is releasing 9 out of 10 angels are now black for some reason. Every angel released is literally just black nowadays. I don't know why. They just constantly do it. Everything.
For an ever-expanding fandom, because these fandoms, I guess, always have to expand past what they were for reasons. And I guess they think diversifying, making these franchises more open is the answer, but I feel like these franchises always have been that way, and these companies are just forcing it, and it's very obvious. And
you know what's funny? Look at the old Disney cartoons. You know, just look at them. Mulan, the Aztec one, all of them, they are actually really diverse. There's a lot of diversity there, and yet no one calls them bad. Strange how that is. Maybe diversity is not the problem, but how they are doing it nowadays. Because man, a lot of those Disney shows, well, not shows, but especially animations, they are diverse as hell, okay? And no one has a problem with them some magically how. You know why? Because they're well made. How interesting how that happens.
It's obviously not working that way. And yeah, they stated diversity as one of the things they wanted to bring to the Lord of the Rings. And then, yeah, I guess...
Dude, imagine people not liking that the character's whole personality is literally the fact that they're black or gay or whatever. Imagine that. Crazy, I know. Imagine people not liking a character that's literally just one dimensional and just a single thing.
Yes, one example was making Aragorn black, which, whatever. Make of that as you will. It was
You know what's my favorite part also about things like Aragorn becoming black and whatnot? It's the fact that there's gonna be a bunch of people who instantaneously start lying. Oh, he was always black as the knight in, the original book series. Yeah, there's always a bunch of people who just instantaneously start lying. Oh, and the source material, actually, yeah, it's true. Yeah, it was like that. It's crazy.
controversial when it was announced. So, how does Kathleen Kennedy, the head of Lucasfilm, feel about all of this? Well, this is the end of May, in which she said women in Star Wars struggle with toxicity due to male-dominated fan base. And she also goes on to say that storytelling does need to be representative of all people. I mean, the thing is, Star Wars has always been male-dominated, and I don't get why.
Screw that male-dominated stuff, okay? I want my inclusive, progressive, wheelchair-bound trans villain, okay? That's what I want, okay? Kathleen Kennedy, you heard me here first. That's what I want in the next Star Wars. I mean, it literally can't get worse. So might as well actually do it. At least it's gonna be funny.
Why this is viewed as an issue. That's what Star Wars is. That's the identity. That is the fan base. And the only push has been in the last couple of years for this to be for everybody. But to be fair, it's always kind of been for everybody. It's just that a lot more male audience cares about Star Wars. That's why you see a lot more.
God, Ahsoka is just so cringe with that. Wait for me while I do a hoopty-loop-doopty-doo move that takes 3 seconds and my, back is turned to you for 2 of those 3 seconds and you could just, poke me like this and Well, actually, it's a lightsaber, so probably poking people doesn't actually do damage. So maybe it makes sense.
Star Wars. That's why you see a lot more of the male audience upset with what Star Wars is changing into. And I don't want to hear it's all just because of diversity. No, it's the storytelling is becoming poorer, and also the canon is just being forgotten to tell stories that are more for modern audiences. The modern audience's angle that everybody is
Dude, that's a Samurai Jack villain, okay? You can't tell me otherwise.
Becoming upset with, because it's a poor man's excuse to change the identity of what everybody fell in love with so many years ago. Then we have Velma, again, a Scooby-Doo adaptation that absolutely everybody hated and still hates to.
I don't know about you, but I loved Velma. It was so stupid it actually made 3 circles and made fun of themselves at many points. It's crazy.
To this day, don't need to talk much more about that. The Wheel of Time, another adaptation that did a disservice to its source material. And then there's obviously The Witcher. We've talked about this extensively on the channel.
You know what people actually don't talk about when it comes to this stuff? The Foundation, okay? I watched The Foundation, I think a couple of months after it first came out. There was just 1 season. And I got to episode 2 or 3 because, man, every meaningful role was either a white bad man who manipulates, is abusive and something like that, or it was a strong, independent woman of color that is perfect genius and capable of dealing with everything, and just, it was horrible. It was horrible. But it did have Dawn, Dusk, and Day, which was really good. A lot of people didn't like what happened in season 2 of The Foundation because, Dawn, Dusk, and Day were, one of the best characters. I liked it because the setup was there, actually, for Day becoming pretty much unhinged and whatnot, with their genetic bloodline being completely destroyed and whatnot. It was great, in my honest opinion. It was absolutely... It was great. And you know what? Season 2 of The Foundation, and this is spoilers, had the best payoff ever. Okay, listen. From episode 1, you hated both diverse female main characters because they were obnoxious, annoying, self-serving, self-righteous, never wrong, and all of the classic stuff. But in season 2, The Foundation, at one point, she dies. Oh yeah. One of the diverse female characters actually goes through character growth, which was good. actually pretty good considering what we had previously. Still not amazing, but at least good. And then the other one almost went through character development, but her big development was that she got killed in a beautiful way. Ah, and I'm not talking she went out like a champion or anything like that. She got killed, and that was great. That was the biggest payoff in cinematic history ever done. Okay, because finally a character you hated that much just got unceremoniously, and that was it. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I'm hoping for a third season of the Foundation. Again, if you can stomach through honestly the first half of the first season, it slowly becomes decent. It slowly becomes decent, and I know that's a huge ask because I watched the first two episodes and I was done for like a year. Then I randomly found a video clip of season two, what's happening there, and I'm like, I'll give it another shot, and I did it. Okay, man, the Foundation gets left out so much when it comes to this stuff.
The reason why Henry Cavill, the star who played Geralt of Rivia, left the show was because he wanted a faithful adaptation of the original books, and that's not what happened. Lauren Hisrich, the showrunner of the show, took the writing, everything in a completely different direction, wanted to open up everything, wanted to diverse the cast, they wanted to inject their own modern politics into it, and it didn't work. The writing was completely messy. There's a reason why we have stuff like this, a compilation of every change between season 2 and the actual book it was supposed to be based on. It's insane, all of the little changes and all the massive changes, and the input of characters that didn't exist in the book. They needed a main villain for the season, so they injected some random witch, I guess. And then they also ruined the relationship of a mother-daughter relationship. It was horrible. And I didn't ever even talk about The Witcher season 3 because that was just, it was horrible. It was a
Well, the one of the craziest things about modern woke Hollywood and all of this stuff is the fact that you can't have a good family dynamic. That is illegal. Your family must be, bad in some way. Because again, there's good families can't exist.
mess in so many different ways. This is a great example. Book description versus Netflix adaptations. Kiera, Margarita. And I believe in the book it actually says Margarita is supposed to be like one of the most beautiful women ever seen before, and the Netflix, I guess they just completely ignored that part.
Fat is not even a woman.
Rings of Power again. Galadriel, they just took that character in a completely different direction than what was envisioned by Tolkien. And then there's many different articles going over all the lists of changes and so many frustrations that people have. And the problem is that a lot of these issues that people like myself and maybe yourself have, they're labeled as isms immediately instead of actually looking at the substance of the criticisms that people have with these new modern entertainment, these reinterpretations of the original works that came decades ago. But we also have articles like this. It wouldn't be Star Wars if it didn't break canon. Because this is the Acolyte. This is the recent adaptation. Obviously, it's not based on a book because obviously George Lucas, it was his film trilogy.
By the way, if you want a good sci-fi show that sticks to actually science and stuff like that, just go watch The Expanse. It's really good. That's all you need to know. Except the last season. The last season is meh. I mean, it's watchable, but it is meh considering everything else.
40 years ago that came about, but still, it's an original work, and it has been butchered in many ways by Disney. But this brings us to a quote that actually came from George R.R. Martin. The writer, A Song of Ice and Fire, famous adaptation, Game of Thrones. I think House of the Dragon just recently came.
Or maybe it's time to rewatch Firefly. Again.
Came out. You haven't seen any controversy with House of the Dragon. I wonder why. But George R.R. Martin doubles down on issues with screenwriters making adaptations their own. 999 times out of 1,000, they make it worse.
I mean, those are good words, but George, get the fuck out, okay? Go write a book or something, You kind of need to do that before your wrinkly ass goes to hell for what you allowed them to do with the last seasons of Game of Thrones, okay? Less virtue signaling, more writing, George, at this point.
This is a feeling that we're starting to see from a lot of book authors and those who, originally were in charge of these franchises. And I guess the easy excuse a lot of people say is, well, they sold their franchises to insert major company or whatever, but that's not an excuse to completely change the vision and what the work was. But George R. R. Martin said, well, he previously spoke on the issue in 2022 during a discussion with fellow.
You know what's the biggest logical fallacy of Hollywood? It's the fact that they truly believe in this modern audience bullcrap actually, working out and whatnot. And the thing what they do is, they take something that is beloved by many, they take it and effectively just skinwalk it like some kind of Wendigo or whatever. And then they ruin the franchise. If they believe so hard in the power of modern audiences, that they are lucrative, that they are gonna be big, and that they are actually the majority of people who are, watching and whatnot, they should be just able to make new shows. No problems. They don't need to ruin old franchises. But they don't make these new shows. They don't try. And that's just a dead giveaway that while they say that they believe that this is the correct way of making money, it's clearly not.
Author Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman, obviously, The Sandman, which actually had a great adaptation on Netflix, diverse, all kinds of stuff, but you never heard controversy with that one because it was authentic to what Neil Gaiman wrote, in which he lamented over the majority of writers in Hollywood thinking they do not need to be faithful to written works they're adapting for films or television. Very little has changed since then. If anything, things have gotten worse. Everywhere you look, there are more screenwriters and producers eager to take great stories and make them their own. It does not seem to matter whether the source material was written by Stan Lee, Charles Dickens, Ian Fleming, Roald Dahl, Ursula K. Le Guin, J.R.R. Tolkien, Mark Twain, so on and so forth. No matter how major a writer it is, no matter how great the book, there always seems to be someone on hand who thinks he can do better, eager to take the story and improve on it. The book is the book, the film.
He's actually saying stuff I have said before, because everyone in Hollywood believes that they know better. Which is crazy. They legitimately think that they are better than the original work, and the original work is stupid, and that they must change it. And one of those big things about this is the fact that we know that this is confirmed truth. When Disney, or pretty much anyone in Hollywood, is making an adaptation of something, they are looking specifically for people in high up roles that have not read the source material and that have no plans to read the source material that they are adapting. Because they literally believe whatever the source material is, that it's bad and they can do better.
Film is the film, they will tell you as if they were saying something profound. Then they make the story their own. They never make it better, though. 999 times out of 1,000, they make it worse. But he does give an example of something that actually was great, and I agree with this one. Martin, however, said that once in a while we do get a really good adaptation of a really good book, and when that happens, it deserves applause, and he points out Shogun, which actually, I think that was fantastic. Although
I haven't watched it, but it is on my bucket list of things to watch.
They're planning to make future seasons of that, which the original work didn't outline that, so maybe that opinion changes in the future. But it's not just Shogun that can be brought up as a great example. Denis Villeneuve is another great individual, great example of this. My goal was to be faithful to Frank Herbert. And this was a specific interview that he did a couple of years back with James Cameron. This is what he specifically said about faithful adaptations, which I think is really interesting in the context of what we're talking about here.
I said to my crew, that's the Bible. I remember watching Peter Jackson, The Lord of the Ring. I was feeling that he had tried at his best to stay close to the description of Tolkien at the time, that he didn't went away. It was an...
They still did changes. Changes are not, by the way, instantaneously bad. If you try to fit into the world that you have made and the world that you are trying to recreate, and you're kind of being faithful to everything that's happening, changes are not bad. Lord of the Rings has changes, by the way. A lot of them, in fact. But not really a problem, so magically how.
And I wanted to have the people who had read the book to feel that all the love and the respect and the reverence I had for Frank Herbert. And so I said, we will not express ourselves. We will try to bring Herbert to the screen as much as possible.
Yeah, Dune also has changes.
And that's unfortunate because, well, it's great that he said that, but it's unfortunate that view is not held by all of the writers that are adapting these beloved franchises. They like to take it in their own ways, which we are seeing right now with The Acolyte, which we're going to talk about in a second. But
Nice.
for the time being, it's worth talking about The Witcher. Netflix's The Witcher. Former producer claims some writers actively dislike the books and games. This was the guy who was working on, I believe it was... X-Men 97 series before he left or whatever. Don't know exactly what.
X-Men 97 is really good. I like it a lot. It is pretty fast-paced, but I think they could do a good enough job explaining to you and you never feel lost. Admittedly, I didn't like the first episode, which was a real turn-off and sad, because I think the first episode in X-Men 97 was by far the weakest. By far the weakest and most political that the show actually got. And everything else, good. But the first episode, well, and the second episode was also a little bit weaker than wanted, but everything else was absolutely awesome.
What happened with that. You have to respect the work before you're allowed to add to its legacy. Something that we have not seen with that Netflix series, which is why it is coming to an end. And yeah, The Witcher reportedly collapsed after showrunner Lauren Hisrich made false promises to stick to source material, but actually never did, led to Henry Cavill exit. And yeah,
Can we just ban all women from Hollywood? I mean, there you go, I said it. I mean, it's true. It's literally, okay, we're gonna lose some actual talent, but we're not gonna lose a lot. In general, we're so winning if we do this.
Multiple occasions, multiple interviews, said he would only stick around for the 7-season plan if they stuck to the source material. And again, we have examples, lengthy paragraphs of all the various changes they made, and they did not do that. And that's why he is no longer a part of that production. And in December 2021, interview with Screen Rant, Lauren Hisrich said that the writing team of the Netflix show always uses Sapkowski's books as the main source. You know, we always go back to the books as our main source, which I don't know about that one. We always knew that Blood of Elves, that season 2 covers, blah, 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 blah. It's the most important to stay with Sapkowski. His tone, match the tone that Sapkowski had. Yeah. That's the most important thing, and that's the thing he asked me to do at the very beginning, which is to represent the spirit of the book rather than the actual page-to-page itself, which isn't exactly what he said at all. And then we have recent interviews with Sapkowski. This was from last year. Netflix never listened to his ideas. Sapkowski attended...
Of course they didn't. They know better, dude. Like, what do you mean?
Vienna Comic-Con, where he was asked if he had given Netflix any feedback when adapting his work into a live-action series. The author gave a sarcastic laugh, saying, "Maybe I gave them some ideas, but they never listened to me, but it's normal." He then broke into an impression of a Netflix executive believing that they would dismiss the ideas. Who's this? It's a writer. It's nobody. And they don't care. And that's how we have this lovely prequel series, The Witcher Blood Origin, which is supposed to explain the whole...
13%. Very nice. I mean, I can already see why it failed.
Witcher universe, and it was a bloody travesty. I have a whole video on that. There's way too much to discuss with how horrendous that was and how cheap it also looked.
I ain't watching this, boys. Stop.
But there's also other examples of this. I mean, there's just the general unhappiness with the Witcher fan base. 147,000 dislikes for the first tease of season 4, and the viewership has been going down the drain since even the last season with Henry Cavill. So this new one without him, it's going to go much farther. Now, this finally gets us to The Acolyte. This is why I really wanted to talk about this video. Obviously, it's not a...
Oh, man, are we going to go down the classic pipeline? Oh, people hate it just because it's a woman. Remember that I said you should, if you haven't, you absolutely should by far, because this is, without question, the best sci-fi series that has currently existed, but by far. Again, The Expanse. You know which is the main lead woman role and second main lead woman role in this series? Well, actually, you could argue that there's two. I'm not gonna take in the reporter because she, kind of disappears and she's not that often, but she's white. The main lead woman role in The Expanse is a black woman. The second main lead role is an Asian woman. Okay? And both of them are goddamn absolutely awesome. Okay? one of the actual standout moments in the show is probably the episode that was pretty much dedicated to the main black woman role, where they get separated, and she gets left for dead on space station, and she needs to find a way out. And then you see her doing stuff, and she's holding her breath. She's doing a bunch of random things, and you're like, what is the point of this? Why is she crazy? What is she trying to? And then you get to the payoff, and it's great. Okay, and in general, again, God, these conversations are so old, so lame, and so just not true. It's painfully dumb at this point.
Book, translation, but it is still a translation from what George Lucas outlined all those years ago. And obviously, again, Disney owns the franchise. They can change it, but they're also changing fundamental things that were established by those movies. The Acolyte, Episode 3 review, one of the most disappointing Star Wars episodes ever made. I'm sure you've seen many YouTubers, many other individuals talk about this. My dissatisfaction with this show is beyond. Like, this episode specifically has the relationship of these two twins, and at 1 second they're like, yeah, I love my sister, and the next second it's, I'm gonna fucking kill you, which is just insane. And then she literally tries killing her with fire, and then obviously it's
Hey, at least that was funny. At least that was the highlight of the episode, because it was funny, at least.
Insinuated that the Jedis may have done some other stuff. We'll see in the coming episodes, but it's just not enjoyable. It's actually very boring, and yeah, let's get to this. The third episode of Disney's The Acolyte is an embarrassment to the entire franchise. Here's one exchange between two characters in the latest episode. The Jedi are bad, the Jedi are good. That's the level of sophistication that we are getting from this, and that's not always the case with the Star Wars franchise. Andor is a great example of a genuinely entertaining Star Wars show, something that I actually
did not watch Andor. I think I tried to watch one episode, and it was just kind of slow. You could tell that the stakes are supposed to be high, but I think it was just poorly executed, so I stopped watching. But everyone's saying Andor is actually good. I don't know. First 5 minutes, and I'm like, I understand that they're trying to go for it, for it's pressure and whatnot, but it just seems a little. It's just not working out for me.
Think is right up there at the top of Disney Star Wars in the last decade that they've had the franchise. That is top notch. That is top tier quality. But unfortunately, nothing else really reaches that. The entire episode is a bad joke. We learn that May and Osha lived with their mothers in a society of witches, all of whom are female. It appears they were conceived using the Force or something. Force-using witches are also apparently frowned upon in the galaxy. It's just genuinely so awful how they made this, and obviously this isn't the case. Like, Star Wars fans are fine with witches. We have the Night Witches, but they're just continuing to change stuff. And they also tried to explain, like, make the Chosen One thing with Anakin Skywalker. They undermine that with this reveal that, we have these two female twins that were supposedly born by the Force. Again, maybe that changes in future episodes. Maybe there's a proper explanation coming, but I highly doubt it. And this sentiment is not just me who shares it. There's many individuals saying that, $180 million were spent on this dumpster fire. The prequel is a shocking waste of time. It certainly
but it wasn't 200 million, so it's really bad.
It is. And then we do have some stars speaking out. I can't even show this video because she's copyright striking individuals who play it. But we have the star of the show who plays Osha and May. She's dancing, and
your dad is literally white. Damn colonizer.
And she's calling out journalists, wanting them to. It's really a fucking insane rant. But she saw I'm going viral on Twitter again, and it goes on and on. I really can't show it, but she dances cringy here for a couple of minutes.
Sad.
Goes off on journalists, wanting them to do their job, I guess. But I mean, the problem is The Acolyte's just not a good show, and there isn't necessarily an angle of people being upset with the diversity of the show. It's just not entertaining. I mean, that complaint wasn't felt with Andor, which has a lot of diversity within it.
I mean, this diversity is upsetting in general. It's just literally extremely on the nose and in your face. So typically, this is not upsetting, true, but man, in the Acolyte's case, it really is, because they try so hard to just shove it in your face.
And there's other pieces of entertainment that have a lot of diversity, but you don't hear the complaints. The show just isn't good, and it's also not faithful to the outline of what Star Wars is about. But we go on. We also have articles like this. I mean, this has been the MO for the last couple of years with a lot of the Star Wars shows. Tamora Morrison's recent comments are a worry for the Disney Plus shows. He was unhappy with Boba Fett because he realized Boba Fett, the show that was supposed to be about his character, the Book of Boba Fett, was actually The Mandalorian Season 2.5. And even with that, the Book of Boba Fett butchered Boba Fett as a character, changing his complete, identity.
Of course they did.
Think Tamora Morrison was also upset with. And then we have other articles. Obi-Wan Kenobi gets review bombed on Rotten Tomatoes. Again, another show that changed.
Dude, what's his face? The star of Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's just such a cuck. He's just such a loser, okay? Shut your mouth and never speak again, okay? And everything will be better. You did one thing good. Now it's time to rest your laurels and literally just, be a relic of the age past, okay? Get out what your name was, I forgot. In any case, I think I'm done. This is just honestly too much. Anyway, that was absolutely great. That was our boy Legacy Killer HD. Oh yeah. Anyway, bye bye.